On this episode of Survivor Angels, we're going to talk about the trauma of chronic illness. I'm talking with two of my very good friends from England who live with it every day, and they're going to tell you how the angels are there to help them. Coming up next.
It's time for Survivor Angels, an approach to strengthen trauma survivors. Here, you can escape what draws negativity and engage your positive abilities and the gifts that you've always had. Let's activate your angels. And to help you on that journey, here's Chaplain Jodi.
On this episode of Survivor Angels, I have two very special friends with me from England, Peta Belson and her daughter Leah. For several years now, Peta more so than Leah, they have struggled with chronic illness. And so today we're going to talk about what they have gone through with that and any possible help that they've received from things that maybe aren't of this world. And we'll go from there. And I think that you'll enjoy hearing their story. So welcome, Peta and Leah.
Hello.
So Peta, you have ulcerative colitis and
Yes.
Leah, you have Crohn's disease.
Yeah.
All right, good. Peta, maybe let's start with you because you were diagnosed at 15. And why don't you sort of tell us how all of that unfolded, the diagnosis and some of the treatments?
Well, yeah, no problem. I was pretty scared of my symptoms. I was passing blood and I was a bit shy about it, and I didn't tell my parents for a long time. So it was the rapid weight loss that eventually sort of made them realize that something was wrong, but that wasn't explained back then. So in the 90s, it was uncommon for people of my age to have this kind of disease. We now know that that's really not true, and lots of people have it, of all different ages. But back then it was dismissed. The symptoms are the same as bowel cancer, so they can be quite scary. And eventually, I recall just laying on the couch and asking my mum if I was dying, and she pretty much just picked me up and made my dad drive me to a private hospital and say, "We're not leaving till you tell me what's wrong with my daughter." and I think it was by that afternoon we knew exactly what was wrong with me. And I was put on the only medication which was around at the time, and that same medication I'm back on again. So not a huge amount has changed for me medication wise. It's just the road in the middle was a bit bumpy for a while.
So did they take you off the medication for a bit then and then put you back on it, or?
There was a period of time around age 20 where my body just stopped sort of responding or kept having sort of more frequent episodes of being unwell. So they decided to change medicines, and nothing was really clicking. Nothing was really working for me. And eventually it got to the point where I had to have surgery. So I had my bowel removed. I think I was 21 at the time. And that was where I had probably someone, as I say, looking after me. The surgery was absolutely fine. It was after the surgery where, I feel like someone was keeping an eye on me. But sort of after that, they tried me back on some other medications, and they weren't working. And eventually I think I remembered sort of having a breakdown in the doctor's office, and he said, "All right, what do you want to do then?" I said, "Let me go back on my old meds and see how it goes." And one child later, and 20 years down the line, I'm still on those same meds and very stable. If anything, I'm probably the healthiest I've been since diagnosis.
Well, that's great.
Yeah.
All right, Leah, your turn. Tell us the story of how all of this came about for you during COVID and very close to Christmas.
Well, I'm very open with my mum. So when my mum was shy about it, I was kind of like, "Mum, what's this?" And she was like, "Oh, okay." And obviously with her seeing her signs, she got in contact with the doctors to get like a stool sample pot, and then they'd obviously test it, and then that would show if I had it or not, or like what was going on. And obviously, my mum's been in England for many years, and we've had the same doctor, or at least I have. I don't know if you have. Yeah, we've had the same doctor the entire time. So there's quite a good bond that he'd trust my mum and just listen and just give us what we needed. And that happened. And on the 23rd of December, 2020 it was?
2020,
yeah, I basically got told that I did have it, but obviously not confirmed where or what exactly was going on and how it could be fixed. But I remember, I can't remember the date, you probably would more than me, but I got sepsis, and for whatever reason, like I was shaking and everything, and mum put me down by the fire, and for whatever reason, then she just noticed that I was all mottled, and yeah, it just kind of went from there and was in hospital for a while, for a fair amount of time, and I had many people looking after me. Some nurses I didn't like because they make me drink a horrible thing before I went into to have what they called
a colonoscopy.
But yeah, like loads of stuff happened. I had loads of different treatments. So what did they put in me? The IV thing.
Oh, you had to have IV antibiotics for your sepsis.
Yeah, for my sepsis, stuff like that, and yeah, it was weird. I dropped a lot of weight all of a sudden. I think he had spoken to the other two in our house, like, is this concerning? Do we need to do something? And then turns out I was got Crohn's.
Why don't you explain, for our listeners, Leah, because some probably don't know, they've maybe vaguely heard of Crohn's. It's not as well known as like ulcerative colitis. In fact, there
Yeah.
is a difference between the two. So what is
So
Crohn's?
ulcerative colitis is only in one part, isn't it?
It's restricted to your bowel.
It's restricted to the bowel, whereas Crohn's is not. There is no restriction. It can be anywhere from your mouth all the way down to the exit. So, yeah, and once you take it out, it will just come back somewhere else. So, like, as my mum's had surgery and had to have her bowel removed, there's no point really in me having surgery, as it will just come back somewhere else, and there's only a certain amount of body parts you can take out before you know. So, it kind of need to have them.
So what are they doing for you, Leah, to treat this now? Since this
So,
will be a lifelong.
initially, I when I went into hospital, I think it would have taken about 3 months for the tablets that they would have given me to actually work, and I didn't have that. That would not have been enough.
Yeah,
time
she
for me.
didn't have 3 months to wait
No.
for the medicine to work, so she had to go on something stronger.
So I went on. Was it infliximab? So it's called infliximab. So I have. Well, I can't remember the name of it. What's the thing they put in? Cannula. Had a cannula put in, and I'd be attached to that, and that was initially every
8 weeks. So
every 8 weeks, and then my body stopped responding to it, or like it would get to like 6 weeks, and my body'd be needing it. So I went in. Was it 6? Or
you went down to every 4 weeks?
Yeah, I then went to every 4 weeks. And then did I go to 2? Or
your body stopped responding, so you went to 2 and then eventually
and then
1.
my body stopped responding entirely, pretty much. And I'm now on a medication called Humira, and I self-inject every 2 weeks. So every fortnight on a Saturday in the morning, I go down to the fridge and take it out. I have to clean the area, so I do it like in my thigh, and I clean it with the what they called, the alcohol wipes, and then easy as that. It takes a couple seconds, really, like 10 seconds. I have to keep it in for. Whereas infliximab was hours and hours long. I'd be in hospital for, so it's a lot easier with my life now.
Yeah, so it's like an EpiPen. The Humira she takes is like an EpiPen, whereas before the infliximab, which is really, they're both really, really strong drugs, but the infliximab would mean that we would be admitted into the hospital, and Leah would
miss school.
Yeah, she'd be missing school. I'd miss work. But the whole day is a write-off because she has to have an antihistamine because we found out she has a slight reaction to it, and then it would be about 6 hours. So it takes 3 hours for the drugs to go through. If she needed iron, then that would be a bit longer. and then we'd be waiting again 3 hours or so afterwards to make sure she had no reactions to it, because it's pretty strong.
Okay. Now, follow-up question as far as treatment and just living life going forward. Are you on any kind of diet restrictions then, that there's some foods you
Um,
really need to stay away from, or no?
somewhat. So obviously, spicy is pretty much a no-go for the both of us. Um,
Yeah.
but with mum having it, I've never really eaten anything that I can't have now. So it's quite bland food and stuff, but I like that, so it's fine. So my diet didn't really change. I suppose it's just with, I don't know how I can see. Oh, this is inverted. How do I move? Okay, right. So around my mouth, around here, you can't see too much now because I put steroid cream on, but that will go really dry, and the corners of my mouth will go really dry to the point where I can't eat certain foods. I can't really open my mouth, so it's quite soft foods and soups. I like my soups.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I have ulcers entire like along the gum lines of both sides of my mouth. They're calm at the minute, but a few weeks ago they were extremely painful, like to the point I couldn't really have anything at all in my mouth. I had to drink for a straw and basically put the straw to the back of my mouth. It was weird. It was not nice.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
Leah's Crohn's is in her ileum, but she is really susceptible to having mouth ulcers quite badly, which, as you say, Crohn's can appear at anywhere through
Anywhere.
your digestive system. So when she's due her meds, they'll generally be worse. So she's on all kinds of mouthwashes and
Literally
bits and
everything.
pieces.
Yeah.
But the other thing that the drugs seem to do is completely dry her skin out. So side effect is better than the alternative, but it's still obviously uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Not fun.
But with
Yeah,
regards to diet, so spicy, oily is really difficult as well.
Not for
Um,
you.
and then there's things like anything with little seeds in. So when we're having an exacerbation, like a little flare up, stuff that's anything that's acidic, so like capsicum, pepper, um, trying to think, apples are really painful.
Yeah, and
Um,
pineapples.
Oh,
but equally anything with tiny little seeds in it, so like wholemeal bread, they tend to put you on a low fiber diet, low fiber, low residue diet, when you're having a flare up, and it's just sort of putting the blandest of things in your body that isn't going to
Make you feel
require you.
any energy.
Yeah, you get absolutely nothing from it, but this is just the act of eating is, yeah, it just becomes quite boring, and yeah, but there we are.
so in America, probably a good cheeseburger and a milkshake, um, would not be good for you. Maybe the milkshake
No,
would probably be good.
Yeah, milkshake's not too bad. The cheeseburger depends where it's from. If it's one of those buns with the sesame seeds on the top,
can't now.
not really. But
Oh,
it's all in moderation. If you have a little bit of that, say I had a cheeseburger and then I went and had. Do you guys have Bounty bars, the chocolate bars with like loads of coconut in it?
we do. We call them like, Mounds bars.
Okay, well,
Okay.
something with like, look, say if I ate that
Shredded
bun
coconut.
and then I ate the shredded desiccated coconut, and then I ate peanuts, I'm having too many things that are going to possibly
Yeah.
get jammed and stuck in all the ulcers and, you know, the
Wasn't
sort
a
of,
lot of
yeah.
irritation.
So if it's in moderation and you kind of wash it down with 2 milkshakes, maybe. Just to move it on its way, it's not so bad. But it took me probably 15 years to learn exactly how my body is and what it will take and what it won't take and how much if I have it. So for example, alcohol is really bad, but if I have a couple of beers, that's no problem. If I was to drink beer 2 days in a row, I'd probably, you know, I don't mean all day every day, but if I was to abuse my body like 2 days in a row, I'm not giving it a chance to recoup. So So
I'll make sure to tell Jeff that you can still have a beer with him the next time we see you.
I can still definitely have a beer. But what I
Awesome.
won't do would have about, I don't know, I wouldn't have like 10 beers, and then I wouldn't get up the next day, have a lovely day out, and then go and do the same again. Coffee is another one for me. I can just about have one coffee a day,
You don't
and
really
I
do
love
that.
coffee, so that's annoying.
You like coffee?
Right?
Can you have coffee milk? Don't you?
I can have like a coffee, yeah, coffee milk or coffee milkshake, but
Okay.
actual proper coffee,
Not
the
really.
smell of it, my stomach is telling me, just the smell of it, don't eat it. Same as KFC.
Drink.
It knows it, just the smell of it, and my stomach is telling me, don't
Then
touch it, leave.
you literally gag. You
Yeah.
gag at KFC.
Yeah, KFC just makes me feel ill, just the smell, because I know my body knows it can't eat it.
It's yummy
Sure.
though.
Yeah, the skin on the chicken's lovely, but I can't,
Yeah.
just can't.
Can't do it.
I don't
No.
I don't really follow anything like that. If I want it, I eat it. I feel like because
Good.
you don't have a bowel, that will probably affect you more.
Yeah.
But with me, I don't.
Right.
In terms of food, I kind of just eat what I want or can. It doesn't particularly affect me. I mean, I suppose stomach cramps would be the worst I'd get, really.
Yeah.
Whereas you'd
Mhm.
be in agony.
Yeah. But that's because Liz is in her ileum.
Yeah.
So
Right. Yep. Okay. So because your mom, Leah, has had her condition since she was 15, has it made it easier for you because she understands a lot of this? I mean, or was there still one
Um,
point in time where it was really traumatic for you? Really scary?
sepsis was terrifying, and being told that I didn't have 3 months for those tablets to work was very, very scary.
Okay.
Um, I feel like just the pain I was in, just constant pain. And the only thing that would soothe the pain in my stomach was a hot shower on my back, which doesn't really make sense. But I feel like my illness definitely brought us a lot closer.
yeah.
You were in hospital with me all the time, and I'm pretty sure you sat with me whilst I was in the shower for like 6 hours and just looked after
This
me.
is true.
I fell asleep on a bin.
To put that into context, we're talking about a shower, like
in a hospital.
a wet room in a hospital where it's got like the bin in the same room, and she sort of hunched herself over, sat in one of those seats that goes in the shower, and just finally nodded off. And I just left her because she hadn't slept for probably 2 days beforehand, hadn't slept properly, so I just left her.
So now for you, PETA, thinking back over all this time, what was the most traumatic part for you? Was it yours, or was it when you found out that Leah had something going on, or maybe both?
um yeah, there's probably parts to both. I mean, I suppose the start of mine, it obviously frightened me enough that I'd asked my mum if I was dying. But I think I was so weak that, I don't know, as horrible as it sounds, I probably would have been all right with it at that point, because I was just so ill and so weak, and I had nothing to give the world. So that must have been quite bad. Um, when Leah, because of COVID and because of what I've got, and we were told specifically, don't go anywhere, don't do anything, get people to do your shopping and things like that. When Leah was diagnosed, I was a little bit scared to be going into the hospital. But then I was on the phone to the people who sort of make all these arrangements. And because the ambulances were, I think it was a 9 hour wait, they said she definitely needs to go to hospital. There's a 9 hour wait. And he didn't really say anything. But I just questioned, like, is there a way that we go in where we avoid like all the sick people? And he just said, you have more chance of surviving COVID than your daughter has of surviving the next few days. So you need to take her to hospital. At that point, I was absolutely petrified. I come upstairs, I cried, and then
know this though.
I packed my bag, and then I went downstairs and said, "Come on, we gotta go now."
And I had no idea that this had happened until a few days after I was better.
Yeah, I came upstairs and had my moment, and then I put my mum head back on and went downstairs and did what I had to do. And there's just like,
you didn't want to scare me.
No, I didn't want to scare Leah.
Right.
I didn't know. I knew sepsis and what it can do. My friend's son had it and he was in a coma for a while. So what I didn't want to do was kind of preempt what might happen. I kind of wanted to just go there. I didn't want Leah to ask me too many questions. As horrible as that sounds, but because I didn't have the answers, and what I did know about sepsis hadn't always been great, so I didn't want to scare her. And I think I was probably a little bit scared of the answers myself, so I didn't want to hear the questions. But they were so good when we got there. They were really good. Straight away, they put her on the IV antibiotics and kind of dealt with the rest afterwards.
I had a lot of jelly.
But yeah, they were brilliant.
Nice. All right, so now we're going to circle back, Peter. You said there was a moment in time where you know that there was somebody there with you getting you through it and everything. Tell us a little more detail about that.
Okay, so going back to when I had my operation, to remove the vast majority of my bowel. I don't have a bag. I've got a tiny little bowel left. So I had an epidural, and it was keeping me very comfortable, filling me with morphine, and I was, as alert and had as much movement as possible, to the point where they sat me up in a chair in the hospital, kind of, I think it was the next day. And when they moved me back to the bed, where they have people crossing their arms, or however they lift you with an arm across your back, someone had pulled the epidural out, which I didn't know about at the time because I was still blissfully numb. And eventually I just said to my mum, my back's wet. And she said, you shouldn't be able to feel your back, dear. And then when we looked, like, that was, the morphine was just obviously not going into me. It was just sort of running down my back. So after a few hours, I was in agony. Bits of this I don't recall. I kind of have like little bits of memory. So I think I must have been in that amount of pain where they say you black out or you don't remember. I do recall this guy coming in, telling a nurse to give me a certain dosage of morphine. My mum says that she kind of looked at the guy and sort of questioned him. And then another nurse came in and they were talking about it. And then the other nurse went and questioned him. And he was adamant to go by the dosage that he had stated. What he'd probably done is use my weight on my pre-op. So bearing in mind, I've not eaten. I've had an organ removed. That weight loss was enough that I think over the course of, I think it's about 12, 14 hours, I'd kind of overdosed. I don't know most of any lead up to that. I don't recall any more than the man saying what the dosage was the first time, but I don't know anything else. So the rest of this is kind of stuff that I managed to get from my mum, who really doesn't like to talk about it because, bless her, she'd flown over from Australia to sit with me. So where they sort of had my back, where the bed sort of goes up, so you're kind of not laying completely flat. They sort of had me sort of sat up, and the chair that my mum was in was behind me, so she couldn't see me. But someone just happened to walk in. I think my mum was on the phone to my dad, and I think they wanted the phone back. And then they just looked at me and then set all the alarms off. I'd gone completely blue, and apparently, well, I mean, they had already told my mum and Leah's dad that I was gone. So the only thing, I don't know any of that, absolutely no idea, not a clue about any of it. My first recollection or first thing that I can then remember is having a really big pain in my leg where they'd given me adrenaline. Unbeknownst to me, I don't know what was going on. So I remember just feeling this huge pain in my leg. And I remember coming around and I sort of come out of a tunnel. I don't remember going into a tunnel, but I definitely had really pinpoint vision. And then I could see Leah's dad at the end of the bed, and he'd been sobbing. He'd been, he was quite visibly upset. And then sort of as my vision expanded, I could see my mum being physically dragged out of the room. She was in a state. And I remember thinking, my heart is racing. Why am I having a panic attack? What are you panicking for? And I just laid and I counted the ceiling tiles, like the polystyrene tiles on the ceiling of my room. And just sort of trying to keep myself alive. I later found out that was my second shot of adrenaline. I'd had paddles, I can't think what they're called.
Neither.
Paddles?
Yeah, paddles, that'll do. You know what I'm talking about? Good. And they didn't work. They were told that they were going to give me, defibs, yeah. They then said that they were going to, told Mum and Leah's dad that they were going to give me the second dose of adrenaline. The risk was that if I woke up, I might well have a heart attack and be gone anyway, because it's, a bit of a dose. As it turned out, I thought I was having a panic attack, and so I tried to calm myself down. Probably kept myself alive somehow. I ended up in intensive care for a few days afterwards. My lungs had already started filling with fluid because I was technically gone. So that is the day that I think someone wasn't quite ready for me to go upstairs. And I have no idea why. There was just so many strange circumstances as to why I got myself out of it somehow, because I didn't know. I didn't know what was going on. I just thought I was having a panic attack, which I don't have, but I just thought that was what was going on. but there we are.
It's amazing. I mean, that story is really amazing.
Quite literally a survivor.
I'm gonna cry.
It is,
because I know you would have.
Yeah, it gave me a completely different outlook on life, though, because things can just go so quick, like unbelievably quick, and they're probably not even in your control. A lot of things are not in our control, no. So it's kind of like, to an extent, obviously don't go too crazy, but gotta live for today. So, and make the most of what you got. No, I don't have all my body parts, and I can't eat a curry, but I'm alive, and I somehow still managed to have a child.
Yeah, no idea how that happened.
Because that's another thing that shouldn't have happened.
No, I should not be here.
Yep. You're like a miracle baby, Leah.
I am 100%.
I was trying really hard not to even have a kid. That's the weird thing.
Yeah. Like, honestly, I know this. It's not new news to me. I do know this.
So this is probably another time that I guess everyone was looking at me, or someone was looking down at me. But when I was 18, I had cervical cancer, and that got dealt with. But it sort of left a bit of a mess. I don't have polycystic ovaries, but when I get cysts on my ovaries, they tend to just be a bit too much, really. So I've had plenty of surgery on that as well. So I remember being told that I'm going to struggle. And then on top of everything else, I think at the time of falling pregnant, I think I was about 45 kilos. I don't know what that's going to be where you are, but it's not enough. It's nowhere near enough weight for a human to be carrying. And then because of how my body was, they also put me on the pill just to try and promote being as normal as possible. So Leah's worked that out. It was about £99. So that's the weight that I was when I was pregnant. I put on, do you want to just work out what 50 kilos is then? Yeah. I didn't put much on carrying Leah. I carried her almost the whole time. So I was, say, 99 when I fell pregnant. I went to 110
pounds
and that was it. Leah was £4.14 at birth, but she was full term. I just didn't really have so much to give her. But yeah, the fact that I was on the pill and was always told that there isn't much in my cervix for her to hold on to. So again, I suppose that's twice within a matter of a couple of years that someone was keeping an eye on me, because we'd given up all kind of before we'd even attempted, we'd sort of given up on having our own children. So
Yeah, I remember you telling me you and Dad were talking about adopting, weren't you?
yeah, so we were talking about adopting, and we were going to sponsor an African child. Is just like, let's get ready for parenthood kind of thing. And then I couldn't pick one. I got all upset, and I eventually picked a little girl. I remember her name. Her name was Rosemary. She was 2 years old. And I thought a girl in Africa would be good to sponsor. A 2-year-old means that we could probably sponsor her for a long time. I sort of got upset because I felt like I was shopping for a child and I didn't like it. I went and made a cup of tea, which I promptly threw up, but it turned out that was because I was pregnant. Which I didn't know at the time. So yeah. So I suppose there's 2 times in my life where I could definitely say that something, maybe a group. I don't know. I don't know.
Group effort.
Yeah, but I was looked
Well,
after.
and definitely, Leah, with you, the night that you went to the hospital and you had the sepsis and everything going on, you had a few angels flying around you and taking care of you too, I
Definitely.
would say.
I would definitely say that as well, because Leah didn't have the horror stories of a lot of people with sepsis. She went in, she had her IV antibiotics, and that was it. That was it. There was nothing else. There was no real. She was obviously unwell, but there was no real threat to her life that some people get.
No.
So, and the timing of that, and I was quite bad. Admittedly, I was quite a bad parent that night, because she said she was cold.
I was physically shaking, like my teeth.
I put her in front of the fire. I told her to go lay in front of the fire, and she was still shaking, I thought, I'll go give her a hug. And as I lifted the blanket up, I could see her skin wasn't right, and I couldn't.
Blue.
I didn't know what was wrong, but I knew it wasn't right. I just knew something was wrong with her skin. We got her up from the fire. I felt her temperature. Her temperature was through the roof.
It was very warm.
So then we tried to put the fire out, open all the doors and the windows.
I was not happy with you. I was so moody. I was like, why are you doing this? I'm cold.
So I suppose to an extent, after I tried to cause her damage by putting an already very warm child in front of a fire, yeah, there was something that just made me realise. I just knew that her skin wasn't right. I didn't know why. I just knew it wasn't right.
This is an example of what my skin was like. This wasn't
not really working, is it?
At the time. Oh, how do I need to do this? This wasn't at the time. This was a while later. I don't know how well it's picking it up, but that's my skin being mottled. That was in 2021. So like 3 months after that all got sorted, I've juggled a couple more times with having mottled skin and bruising and stuff like that. So
yeah. So the
skin, I'm very sensitive.
The skin might have had nothing to do with the sepsis, but it was enough to make me realise there was something really wrong.
I look like a lizard.
Yeah.
A lizard.
So we can laugh about it now.
Yeah, we're fine now.
Yeah.
Good.
It's very scary, but this is how we deal with things. We laugh.
Yeah, that's kind of my motto too. If you can't laugh at it, even if it's after the fact, maybe not at the moment, at that point in time.
Yeah, we definitely got through a few things by kind of laughing the way through it.
Yeah.
Because the stool sample wasn't even Leah's to use. I made them print off another sticker. I just said she needs it more than me. So yeah. But there we are.
Oh, it's been absolutely wonderful talking to both of you. I have missed you. We will continue this conversation after we shut off the show here and everything. But so we can sign off with everybody who's listening. I wish both of you all the best and everything. And I can't thank you enough for coming on Survivor Angels. And everybody who's out there listening, this is Peta Belson and her daughter Leah and their angel story.
Thanks again for joining Chaplain Jodi on Survivor Angels. For more information, go to chaplainjodi.me. That's chaplainjodi.me. And on Facebook at Survivor Angels-Chaplain Jodi. Sound effects for the show created by Andre Opate and provided by Pixbay. This is Dave Schrader. Until next time, sending you off to activate your angels.